Welcome back to Good Morning Tobago on Tobago Updates and viewers. Just want to apologize for that little break in transmission. But we are talking today about World Consumer Rights Day because today is World Consumer Rights Day and it underscores the importance of consumer rights in the global marketplace. And to speak to us a little bit about World Consumer Rights Day and even how it's going to be observed here in Trinidad and Tobago, specifically Tobago, I am being joined by Mr. Langdon Phillips, and he is the Manager of Consumer Affairs Unit in the Division of Finance, Trade and the Economy. So good morning and welcome to you, sir. How are you doing?
Good morning. It's so wonderful to be here. I'm in a great mood because I'm certainly happy, acknowledging consumer rights. I think that a lot of us take for granted, but then in the marketplace, when we stumble upon certain issues, we realize that how important and significant our consumer rights really are.
And tell me about that. Like, what's so important about knowing our rights and so on?
Well, the thing about it is, fortunately, in Tobago, we have a lot of scrupulous business persons, but we know that at times that business persons can be because, they're into business to earn a profit. So sometimes, or a lot of times, you have to understand that the consumer's interest may not be the number one priority, your economic interest. And so, fortunately, we have laws and so in place protecting the consumer rights. And so the Consumer Affairs Unit was established to protect the economic interests of consumers. But the consumer rights, if a person thinks about shopping, consumption, acquiring a good or service for your personal satisfaction, you would go shopping, or now we can do it online also, is acquiring these goods and services. But the first thing is that you have the right to choose. You could choose what store you're going to and what item in the store, because you have options in the store. So the first thing persons always have to be mindful of is that they have this choice. The choice is yours. You can't be bullied, bombarded. You're not obligated to purchase item A over in item B. The choice is yours. And which is why we always tell persons along to ensure that you safeguard your rights, you have responsibilities. So one of the responsibilities we always mention to consumers is that of shopping around. Because oftentimes you hear persons buy an item and they say, oh my goodness, I went down the road and realized I could have gotten it for $50 less or even $500, $5,000, in the price difference. So we often tell persons, you have the right to choose, but be responsible, shop around, right? Another important right of the consumer is to be given accurate information, truthful, honest, accurate information about the good and the service that you intend to acquire. To be able to get this information, you obviously need to read it and the packaging, read the labels, and see what is actually being offered. Ask questions at the store prior to purchase. Oftentimes, persons ask a number of questions after when they run into problems. But we always try to tell people to ask questions before, because one of the areas that I see the Tobago consumer has stumbles upon a number of problems. So when something goes wrong with an item, they go back to the store and then they are told that, a technician, authorized technician has to treat with the item, all well and good, but then the technician is not based on the island. So they have to then wait in turn for this technician to be able to make it up to Tobago and check the item. And then they also realize that they're not obligated to get a loan unit in the interim, so it could be a number of weeks before this person comes up and you have not afforded the luxury or the courtesy of a loan unit, and we know how major appliances could shut down a household.
Yes.
Further to that, we have the right to be heard. So whenever you have a problem with an item, stores are obligated to hear you. So just always feel free to go back to the store and let them know exactly what's the issue you're having with the item. They're obligated to hear you, right? Um, you have the right to safety. So if you purchase an iron, it's supposed to get hot to press the garment. It's not supposed to shock you, because then, you then instead will actually be in shock if it does that, So items are supposed to be fit for the purpose, nothing more, in the sense that you don't expect it to be harmful to you or persons around when you're using it. And if an item is not functioning properly, you have the right to what we call redress, which is a fair settlement. And we talk about the 3 R's here. Oftentimes the store might opt to repair the item, or it can replace it. And the one that's often most difficult, the refund, But it's supposed to be up to the customer, the consumer, to choose which form of redress they want, particularly based on the type of item, the price, how long, in terms of the date of purchase, how long they had the item. So once they didn't abuse the item, then they're supposed to be obligated to have a fair settlement, for their just claims. Beyond that, we have the right to just what we are having somewhat here, consumer education, because it's so important for consumers to be given information out there so they can make the right choices in the marketplace. It's also the right of a consumer to have access to all the basic amenities, your food, clothing, shelter, and added to that is education and healthcare. And if we think of these things, right here in Tobago, we have access to all of these things here, And to be responsible, we should always note where they are, know what obligations we may have to access these services or products, because oftentimes we take these rights for granted and we don't act responsible, and then we complain that our rights being infringed upon. But we have to safeguard these rights by being responsible consumers.
All right. And then when it comes to having a situation or being faced with a situation where a customer feels that they're not getting the kind of redress or their rights are not being respected, what mechanism or what system is in place to help them find that redress that they're seeking?
Okay. Well, at the Consumer Affairs Unit, one of the services we offer to the public is that we treat with consumer complaints. So a person can feel free to call our office on number 639-6556, or simply call to the Division of Finance, Trade and the Economy, and they'll transfer you to the Consumer Affairs Unit. And we have officers, or specifically an officer at this point in time, that treats with consumer complaints. So once we realize it's a legitimate complaint, we would investigate it and treat with it and explore obtaining redress for the consumer. And we often boast about having, from inception, our success rate has always been in excess of like 95% success rate. Some may have to go a bit beyond where we might advise the person to take up, go the legal route in having their claims, justified.
All right. And what, sometimes we go with this notion that the customer is always right, and there's some customers that may want to abuse that. How should even business owners treat with situations like that? What's available for them?
Well, the thing about it is, a lot of business owners actually come to us and speak to us prior to even a consumer coming to us. And we are very fair. We are very fair because, you see, we know oftentimes a consumer coming to us with a complaint, and upon thorough investigation, you realize the story takes a turn. So you're not always offered the truth initially, because some consumers seeking their economic interests only. So they're not really, they might be dishonest in their actions. And then, when they'll say, when you think about it, they spend thousands of dollars on this item, but they abuse the item, they use it improperly, they fail to read the instructions prior to use, so they actually damage the item. And they take it back to the store and say, I don't know what happened, we just set up the item and X, Y, Z take place. So certainly when a complaint, we are faced with a complaint, once the consumer is deemed to be liable, we would not entertain it. We wouldn't take up that matter, or we definitely would throw out that case.
All right. Well, the theme for this year's World Consumer Day is that of fair and responsible AI for customers. For consumers, sorry.
Yeah.
So give me an idea of how unpack that theme a little bit for us here in Tobago, especially.
Well, the thing about it is, but I know a number of persons, we all have been hearing about AI. We know it means artificial intelligence. And it's when you come across these words, it's sort of cloudy in the minds of many. And even myself, because it's so broad, it goes a lot deeper than we think. We have encountered it in so much places and we take things for granted. We don't even know that we are already, faced with treating with AI, and AI has been, we exposed to it in so many ways. And that's why by month end, we will be having a program combined with our colleagues up at TITL, Tobago Information Technology Limited, right? Who they would actually be treating with the topic and explaining things and showcasing certain things so that people will be able to safeguard themselves when accessing a lot of services where they expose and interact with AI, because it can be so useful and help enhance productivity of our organization, our person, everything. But also it's something that we need to safeguard ourselves, because when you heard of certain, it's been abused and it can be used to con persons or so. So it's definitely something that we need to look at, have the knowledge so we know how to treat with it and how to safeguard ourselves going forward. So definitely before the month is out, the theme for World Consumer Rights is something it will definitely be focused on by our unit combined with TITL.
And what are some of the things that you're even seeing that's popping up within our society where AI is concerned?
Well, typically a lot of the large organizations, from the time you log on to their web pages, you realize that you ask certain questions and you're being channeled. It's almost like you're conversing with someone, This is really good, because even a lot of times, even beyond the hours of operation, you could call our organization and get great assistance, pointed through, and get exactly the answers that you were seeking. So you're going beyond the rush hour. And you're actually getting a lot of information. You might actually, in some cases, you actually might be conversing with what you would think is someone, and it's this automated responses or so. But it's so channeled, and it can be so wide and so deep, as I was saying. You wouldn't believe it's beyond. You would believe it's beyond a computer system. You actually believe it's a person you're speaking to. So it can be very useful and practical. But as you know, along with this sort of technology, so there's a lot of dangers along with it.
Certainly. Now, for World Consumer Rights Day, what else is the unit doing in Tobago for education drives and that sort of thing? How else are we observing the day in Tobago?
Right. Well, we certainly would be putting, just like how I would have touched on the rights here today, and the responsibilities associated with these rights, we would actually be looking to put a lot of information out there in the media, in in the face of ads also, to share and remind people, because most persons are aware of these rights. The thing that we really have to be mindful of is being responsible along with these rights, because we've acted improperly a lot of times, because, for instance, I would have mentioned that you have the right to be heard. But a responsible thing there would come down to how you approach the store, the retailer. You're not going to just go, because that's often make a difference. When we treat with consumer complaints, you actually hear the proprietor, the business owner say, I don't have a problem giving this person back the item, but it's the way they come in the store, the badge in there, the quarrel, might have even use obscene language. They had to summon security or so for them. So, and then they charge, and they're not feeling to offer any sort of remedy to this situation. But when it comes down to it, the item was not working. So they should get some sort of redress. But all because of the way how they would have approached it, they were turned down. So it's so important for that sort of information to reach consumers, not just your rights, but your responsibilities, to act out there. So we want to just continue putting that information out there. That's why education is a great part of our mandate. And we treat with complaints, as I mentioned, and also beyond that, we have what we call a research section, and we go into the retail outlets, supermarkets, or as the case may be, and we collect prices. And we also, because we are aware of, beyond the consumer rights, we know all the stipulations by the government, how things are supposed to be laid out, also what's supposed to be on display for consumers also, with like a unit price for these items that you have to weigh, the weights and measure. And so we check and ensure that these things are in place at stores, and we have very capable research officers, and the length and breadth of the island is covered.
Great. And now, as we're getting ready to wrap things up this morning, I just want you to just leave the information for the public to know how to get in touch with the Consumer Affairs Unit out of the division.
Right. Well, our unit is located in the heart of Scarborough, the Victor E. Bruce Financial Complex. We are on level 1 of the complex. The number I shared before, 639-6556. Still the same. Or you could just call the Division of Finance and ask to be transferred to the Consumer Affairs Unit. So you know the location, you have our number. Also, through the division's page or so, one could feel free that, whether it is the Facebook page or so too, could message us if you have a concern also, and we will treat with the complaint by that method, because thanks to technology, you could send a copy of your receipts to us, so we could, as your proof of purchase. So.
And then how can people be involved with the fair and responsible AI use for consumers, a program that's going to be coming up with it all?
Right. Well, we'll be having a program coming up before the end of the month, and we'll be bringing information as to how they could register for it, and so. But more than likely, it will be a program online. So persons could be in the comfort of their home and tune in and get all the relevant information needed.
Okay, great. I want to thank you so much, Mr. Phillips, for being on with us. It was certainly a pleasure speaking with you this morning. So we have a good day.
Thank you.
All right, our viewers, we're not quite done yet. We've still got a little bit more coming up for you on GMT, so don't go anywhere.
It's a brand new morning.